Hi again, everybody. It's Kevin Canessa coming to you from the newsroom of The Observer and TheObserver.com on this, the 26th day of December in the year 2023. Happy Boxing Day, everybody, for all you Canadians out there. Hope you're all enjoying your day, no matter where it is you are in the country. And as you do every Tuesday afternoon, you welcome me into your homes so that I can bring you this week's news. And, of course, before we do that, when we have people in the chat room, we welcome them in. Carmen de Jesus is here. Merry Christmas, dear Carmen, to you, too, to Nellie and all of the family. Hope you had a wonderful day and a couple of days for Christmas. Our other dear friend, Manny Ventoso Jr. is here. Manny, Merry Christmas to you. I hope you are enjoying a day off today, but something tells me you're probably in Booton or something like that, doing a job, even though it is Boxing Day, the day after Christmas. So we welcome you in as well. And we also have a very special guest with us today. That's our good friend Pat Long, who is also our mail carrier, who comes by on a regular basis, and well, just like every day. And not only is she watching us from home today, she is home with her daughter Emma, who is with us as well, Emma Long, and her son-in-law, James Garrison. So we welcome them in from the great state of Texas, even though we won't hold that against them that they live in Texas now. They're able to fly around the country and go all over the place and watch the New Orleans Saints every week. What a great situation that is. But Emma, we love your mom very, very much. She's a very important part of our life. And I said to her the other day how grateful I felt that she became part of our life this year. So thank you, Pat, for joining us. Also here today is William Dow. I don't know if this is a junior or senior, but Bill, good to see you. Whichever Dow you are, you'll forgive me for not knowing right off the bat. Good to see you as well. And Manny, of course, as he does all the time because he is a workaholic, is working today on the day after Christmas. But then again, so were we. We're in the office today, so why shouldn't Manny be out and about doing work as well? Anyway, this edition every year is a special one for us because we go back and look at the stories that made news over the last year. And there were quite a few stories that were very, very big in our neck of the woods. And I'm going to tell you, this was a tough one because in certain years we would go month by month and go through everything, which is just positively boring. You don't need to know about an obscure police blotter item or something like that, or somebody who had a fall in a trip or something like that in the middle of February. So what we did this year was we decided to take some of the bigger stories, and there were some big ones. And I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of the 4 biggest stories of the year. And then I'm going to go through them a little bit with you. Of course, in June, we lost our dear friend Jim Hague. That was, of course, a very, very personal story for many of us here at The Observer. But that, of course, is one of the bigger stories of the year. 2023 was also the year that Kearney had 3 mayors. You may recall that. And now we are on our 3rd and final mayor of the year 2023 in Councilwoman Carol Jean Doyle. There was a matricide in Harrison earlier this year where a young man by the name of Victor Tamache, who was 33 years old, murdered his mother, Rosa Massoni, who was 67 years of age. And then another story that we thought was a good one this year was the retirement of Anthony Montero, the chief of police in East Newark. One of the best there is, and he's a young guy still, so he's still got a lot of time left. So we'll kind of give you that rundown, and we'll go through some of these stories in a minute. Before we do, we also welcome in Kelly Skolar. Cal, good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a nice Christmas, and I hope Mom Loretta is doing well, too. Please give her our love as well. And we also welcome in Larry Hanlon, and every time Larry is with us, we know it is a day that we will be kept on our toes, and we will hear only the truth and facts about anything that we discuss. Now, before I get into the rundown, if any of you would like to join me on the air, you can. And all you got to do is hit the link that was in the description, bit.ly/obguest. But you can also, if you want, you can also scan this QR code with your telephone, too, and you can join us live on the air, and we could have a nice discussion about this or any other topic that you want to. And before we get into that, I want you to know that we're going to be closed next Monday for New Year's, just the way we were last Monday or yesterday for Christmas, which means our deadline for the next edition of The Observer will be Friday. The deadline for classifieds, 2 p.m. and 10 a.m. for the obituary. So be on top of that, please. Don't be last minute. Get everything to us as quickly as I can. But as we get into the rundown, remember, if you want to join us, click that little QR code right there, and you'll come right on the air. We can see you. But if you want to, you can. You don't need to use your camera, but you can come on with us with audio. A year ago or so, Jim Hague retired, and it was a very difficult day for us as a staff here. Jim had been the Observer sports reporter and journalist and guru, really, for 20 years. And he was the first hire that Lisa Fiorenzo and Bobby Pizzola made in 2002 when they took over upon the tragic death of Anthony Tortoretti. And the one thing, aside from them, that remained a constant throughout those 20 years was Jim Hague. In fact, did you know that while he was our sports reporter, he missed 1 week in a 20-year span, 1 week, and it was just about a couple of years ago. And even then, he really didn't miss it because he had backup. And this was the kind of dedicated guy Jim Hague was. He loved what he did. He was stellar at what he did. And to this day, it makes me... Jim Hague was the type of journalist who has kept me on my toes even to this very day because he was so meticulous in the way he covered sports, but that transcended into the world of news. You didn't want to disappoint him because what mattered to him most was never being the first, but to be the best and to be correct at what he did. And in the 20 years he was with us, and in the time that he spent at the Hudson Reporter chain of newspapers in Hoboken and Jersey City, and before that with the Hudson Dispatch before it folded in 1991, and in the years that he covered the Devils, the Nets for AP, and various other newspapers, all Jim Hague did was cover things, but not to be the first, but to be the most accurate. And that's why when you look back, the one thing you didn't see much of from Jim Hague over his career were corrections and clarifications, because he got it right the first time, every time. And last year, when he started to get sick, we knew it wasn't good. He was in pretty bad shape. He had encephalitis, and that was a very difficult thing for him to go through. Water on the brain is never an easy disease to deal with, and it slowed him down, but he fought for months, whether he was in Kessler or in hospital or wherever he was, and his wife Mary Costello was at his side all the time. He really was there all the time with Mary, and the day he died, it was just a shock to all of us that we had lost somebody who was only 62 years old, too. Jim was a young guy. He was way too young, and he left us way too early. And one of the great things, though, that came from his life is that for the rest of eternity, the Athlete of the Year awards will be named the Jim Hague Observer Athletes of the Year. And we wanted him to know this. We wanted him to take this honor before he got sick and everything of that nature, and he never wanted to do it. He always felt like, hey, I'm alive, I'm well, don't write me off, don't make me the Athlete of the Year, but if you want to, I guess you can. So he sort of knew it was going to happen, but it didn't really become official until we tragically lost him in June. But that will stick with us forever. Every time we hear about an Athlete of the Year, it will be the Jim Hague Observer Athlete of the Year, and that's something that Lisa and Bob agreed to like that when it came into our minds. So we miss him. We do. And I know there are scores of athletes who miss him too, because I'll never forget what Mikey Batista wrote in his tribute to Jim Hague, and that was every young teenager wanted to be the Observer Athlete of the Week, and not everybody got that honor. That was a very, very strict, tough honor to achieve. So if you were an Observer Athlete of the Week, and then if you ultimately became the Athlete of the Year, you were somebody who really was impressive, and that is something that will live on with us for many, many years to come. So, Jim, we miss you. We really do, and your loss is something that we have felt all these months later, and we will never be the same. That's the main story this week in the recap. We're also joined this afternoon by Mayor Dan Pronti of North Arlington. Mayor Pronti, always good to see you. Thank you for coming by. Mayor and I are going to do a Mayor's Corner soon, where we will speak live and answer questions about what's going on in North Arlington. I'm looking forward to that in the year 2023. My old buddy Bill Scarterfield is with us, coming to us live from the great state of Arizona on a day where his Eagles got back on the winning track by beating the Giants yesterday in the city of brotherly love. Billy, it's good to see you as always, and in a couple of months our two teams will be playing each other at MetLife Stadium. I could get tickets, but I just don't think I could ever handle being out in that cold for that long in February, so I'm probably going to take a pass on that. But Billy, good to see you. Lawrence Carr is here with us. He wishes everybody happy holidays. Lawrence, the same to you as well. And Eileen Matthews also here with us. Happy New Year, Eileen. Thank you for always popping by as you do so often with us. Now, this story. If you didn't think this was coming, you didn't pay attention in the last year. And the story is of the three mayors in the town of Kearney. We began the year with Al Santos, who had been mayor since January 1st of the year 2000. Al Santos retired or resigned to become a Superior Court judge. And then Peter P. Santana was appointed by the county committee and the town council to become the interim mayor. He served for a couple of months, and then the election took place in November, on November the 7th, and Carol Jean Doyle won in a three-way race, defeating Sidney Ferreira, who ran as a Republican and had a phenomenal showing, and Santana, who came in third of three. And things have been different, and in a way, they have been no different, because the Democrats are still divided as they have ever been, at least in the last couple of years. The blame for that goes to whoever decides to write a letter or who is more vocal about it. There are many, many discussions out there as to how this has happened. Excuse me, I got a little tickle. But there's a lot to be, I guess, excited about still, because Kearney has its first ever female mayor, and we did have three this year. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens in the new year in January, because don't forget, Councilman Renato da Silva will also have to run to keep his seat. And my suspicion is that there's probably going to be more than one Democrat running for that seat. Don't ask me why, just a hunch, no inside information whatsoever, but I just have a feeling, given the way the election has gone over the last couple of months, that we may see a crowded field for the Democratic nomination, and we may see some Republicans running as well. So it will be very interesting to see what happens there. Now, I'm happy to say that I spoke with Councilman da Silva last week before Christmas, and we do have a letter from him in the newspaper this week about the headline that I wrote a couple of weeks ago, Councilman Who, and I will just make it very, very clear one more time that that was never about him personally. It was about the process and how this all went down. But I'm happy to report that Councilman da Silva and I are going to meet sometime this or next week, and I'm going to do a story about his becoming the 3rd Ward councilman, at least for the next year. And beyond that, we'll see what happens. So that is something new as well. Now, before I move on to the next story, we have a visitor in from the Adirondacks, and it's Barbara Condon. I don't know if she's maybe in Kearney or she's down visiting or anything, but she's normally in the Adirondacks, where it's very, very cold usually. But I don't know if she's had any snow yet this year. We haven't, Barb. Have you? It's always great to see Barbara Condon, formerly of the Condon Funeral Home. It's called, I think, the Alvarez Memorial Home now. We don't know, because we've never met anybody over there, but we miss our Barbara because she was always fun, always enjoyable and entertaining to know over these years, and I miss her very, very much. But it's good to see she's here in the chat room with her. Now, Bill Scarterfield says, "What snow?" And that's very Arizona-like, isn't it? But I mean, it's been getting cold there, hasn't it, Billy? I've seen the temperatures are not always in the 80s and the 90s in the wintertime. So I'm sure you have to put on a sweater when it turns to like 75 when you have to go outside. I'm sure. No, I don't know. What do I know? I used to wear sweaters in Florida when it was 60. So I guess it's everywhere when you live in a warm climate. The last two stories of the year, which were pretty big, was this terrible case that happened in Harrison in January. This young man, Victor Tamache, was 33 years old, and he murdered his mother, Rosa Masoni. And what bugged me, I think, what was so weird about that was that this happened a block away from my house. And that next morning, I remember getting up and seeing all the vehicles that were there from the Hudson County Prosecutor's Office, and there was blood on the street, and I just can't imagine what it must be like to know that somebody murdered their own mother. And that's exactly what happened in this case. Tamache, who is now 34, I believe, I'm happy to say, is still behind bars at the Hudson County Correctional Facility in South Kearney. But what a horrible case that was, and a terrible thing to wake up to that morning earlier in the year when this all went down. Just a horrible, horrible situation when a mother loses her life at the hands of her son. But that's exactly what happened in Harrison in the earlier part of the year. Now, the last story, certainly not least, was that Anthony Montero, who was the chief of police for 20 years in East Newark, resigned, and he was chief for 10 years. Anthony was a phenomenal chief. He was an exemplary police officer and an even better chief. And this is a guy who ran probably one of the smallest police departments in the state of New Jersey, but always gave of himself beyond the workday. He was a volunteer firefighter. He was out there with kids. He was instrumental with Billy Arizuma starting the first ever junior police academy a couple of years ago. And anything he ever did was not to get glory, was not to get praise, was not for a proclamation or a photo. In fact, over the years, Anthony's picture was in the Observer far less than just about any other police chief or police officer, for that matter, than I can recall in the time that I've been around. And so when he decided that he was going to retire, we did a tribute to him. And it was just a shame because he's still young and he's got a career ahead of him still. And I really haven't had a chance to speak with him since he did resign in September. But what I do expect is that over the next couple of months, we're going to start to hear about some great things that he's doing with other law enforcement agencies, whether it's in New Jersey or elsewhere or locally. I don't know yet, but that's something that will to be determined eventually. But what I do know is that his loss is something that will be felt not just in East Newark, but by West Hudson, because he was more than just a police officer and a chief of police. This is a guy who gave his life for the community of East Newark, and he's somebody who personally I miss, and I know most people who are from East Newark would say. And we miss him a lot, and we know he's going to do great things no matter where he winds up next. So that's it. That's a look at this week's bigger stories as a recap. And wow, Ivan Anderson is here. My buddy Ivan Anderson, who I met many, many years ago when I was doing an internet TV show. Ivan is in Canada, and he is also a firefighter, an exemplary firefighter in, I want to say St. John's, but I'm drawing a blank, Ivan. You'll forgive me for that. And I've always had many a great conversation with Ivan Anderson over the years about firefighting, the science, and 9/11 and things of that nature. So, Ivan, happy holidays and Merry Christmas to you too, buddy. And we hope you're all doing well on the other side of the Canadian border. And it's always a pleasure to see you. And believe it or not, that's going to do it for this edition of the Observer Live. I really want to thank each and every one of you for being a part of this broadcast and every broadcast as you have since 2017 when we first started doing this. And I still can't believe that anybody would spend part of their day with us, but you do it every week. And to me, it helps me thrive each and every week. And you know that Lisa says, go ahead and do this. helps me to fulfill childhood dream of mine to be on the radio. Yeah, it's not the radio, but it's the second best thing, and I love every minute of it. And I thank her and you for being part of this with us. I really, certainly, Billy said it himself. I wouldn't have known Bill without DARPATV.com. It was started off with Shovio.com and became DARPATV.com, and that's how I got my craps and giggles with this. And all these years later, here we are still doing it, but in a much better, perfected way. So, Billy, you're right. You are absolutely right. So, we're really grateful to everybody for spending part of your day here. Terry Polaris is also here with us. I just don't want to miss anybody. And let's see who else we got here. Ivan is New Brunswick. Did I say St. John's? I'm sorry, Ivan. Also here with us is Mayor Carol Jean Doyle. Love you too, Mayor Doyle. I'm probably not supposed to say that, but nah, I did. I just did. And former Councilman Larry Sansone. Larry, how much more weight are you going to lose? You look fantastic, buddy. Congratulations, man. It's good to see this happening to you. You deserve it. You look phenomenal. Well done, Larry. Great, great, great stuff. And I'm sorry I didn't get to see you a couple of weeks ago when you were in town. I did hear you were here, and I'm so sorry I wasn't able to be there. But all I heard was some great stories about your return. And I'm sorry it had to be under such horrible circumstances. And the last thing to say here is from Mayor Pronti. I'd like to wish you and everyone a happy and healthy new year. God bless. And when I tell you Mayor Pronti means that, he does. He is one of the finest people you're ever going to know. Mayor Pronti, thank you as well. I have a couple of mayors in this room right now. Who else could draw two mayors to one broadcast? Nah, I don't think so. So that's going to do it. We'll be back a week from today or maybe next Wednesday, depending on how the schedule goes. And, of course, if anything breaks during the course of the week, we will bring it to you live as necessary. Again, enjoy the rest of this shortened week. Happy Boxing Day to all of the Canadians out there who are watching us. And we will see you back here about 1 week from today. From the newsroom of The Observer and TheObserver.com, Kevin Canessa signing off for now, and we hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Belated Merry Christmas, Happy Boxing Day, Happy New Year, and we will see you next week, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.